I sat at the edge of my bed, scrolling through my sister's latest Instagram post. There it was, the lavish dinner spread, golden candlelight, champagne bubbling in their glasses, and that caption. Cheers to 30 years of love, loyalty, and perfect family. The hashtag stung worse, hashtag family only, hashtag beautiful inside and out. I wasn't there, because I hadn't been invited, because, according to my mother, it's an intimate celebration for those who represent the family. Well, we don't want to explain things. The things she didn't want to explain. Me, her daughter. The one who didn't fit the aesthetic they had curated so carefully over the years. I didn't wear enough makeup. My hair didn't shine like my sister's. I never smiled on cue for their social media perfect family albums. I was the smudge on their glossy portrait. When I'd asked her, carefully, vulnerably, why I hadn't been included, she laughed. Not kindly, not nervously. She laughed as if I were being ridiculous. Sweetheart, she said in that sharp, silky voice, it's not about you, it's about how you make us look. I hadn't cried, not this time. I'd already mourned the mother I never had, and the father who treated silence like protection. I moved out at 19, worked 2 part-time jobs through college, and built a quiet little life designing user interfaces for a startup that eventually sold for more than anyone ever expected. What my parents never knew, what they never even asked, was that the plain, awkward daughter they cast aside had become a multimillionaire before turning 30. But they didn't care. Because success didn't shine like lip gloss in a family photo. A week before their anniversary dinner, I overheard my sister on speakerphone. She was talking to Mom while applying eyeliner in the hallway outside my apartment. She liked my lighting for selfies. I'm just saying, she said, if she shows up, people are going to think she's some caterer or something, you know how she dresses. That was it. The moment something in me switched. Not in rage. Not in spite. But in focus. They wanted perfection, they wanted appearances. So I'd give them something to look at. I reached out to the manager of the restaurant they'd booked for their big event, one of the city's most exclusive venues, tucked behind a gilded awning and known for refusing even celebrities without proper notice. The manager remembered me. I had once helped his wife design a digital learning app for children with dyslexia, pro bono. He'd offered me dinner on the house. I declined. Instead, I asked if the place had ever been for sale. Turns out, it had just hit the market. And with one wire transfer, I became the silent owner of the restaurant where my parents planned to celebrate their 30th anniversary. A place they had proudly boasted about on Facebook, telling friends to watch the space on Saturday night. I told the manager not to cancel immediately. I wanted them to come, to walk in, to smile, to expect the evening of their dreams, and then, only then, would they understand that not all daughters stay quiet forever. The night of their anniversary arrived with all the pomp they craved. My mother wore the champagne-colored gown she'd imported from Italy, tight enough to turn heads, modest enough to pretend she wasn't trying. My father adjusted his cufflinks, the ones I had gifted him years ago for his birthday, still without knowing I was the giver. He always assumed they came from my sister. My sister arrived early, of course. She liked to pretend she was part of the restaurant elite. She had rehearsed her entrance, slow steps, polite waves, a wide smile, as if the entire dining room were waiting to applaud her. The photographers she hired were already stationed at the front door, ready to capture the most flattering angles for her social media. And then, they walked in. They didn't notice the subtle changes, the arrangement of lighting, the placement of servers, the newly framed artwork on the walls. They were too self-absorbed, too busy scanning for compliments, to notice the owner standing at the back of the room, dressed in a crisp black suit with no label and no name tag. Me. I stood beside the manager, who greeted them graciously and led them to the center table they had specially requested. "Thank you for celebrating with us tonight," he said warmly. "You'll be well taken care of." They didn't recognize me. Not at first. Not when the appetizer was served. Not even when the violinist played the opening notes of Clair de Lune, my mother's favorite. Then came the menus, printed on cream cardstock, embossed, elegant. Each one included a note at the bottom, written in italic gold. "Tonight's service has been curated by the new owner of Maison LOD. We hope your evening is unforgettable." My mother blinked. My sister squinted. My father looked around, confused. I walked forward slowly and placed a single gold envelope on their table. My father reached for it. My mother stopped him. She sensed it. I could see her entire body stiffen. She knew. He opened it anyway. Inside was a photo, me, standing beside the restaurant's manager, smiling, holding a small framed certificate. Congratulations to Miss Blair Holloway, new owner of Maison LOD. My name, printed in bold, unmistakable. My father's hand dropped. My mother's face drained of color. My sister stared, her expression frozen in a twisted half-smile that now looked pathetic. And then came the twist. The servers returned, not with entrees, but with carefully sealed white boxes. Inside, wedding invitations. Mine. They hadn't even known I was engaged. The front of each invite read, "You are formally not invited. Respect is not requested. It is required." The room hushed. Other diners had started noticing. Whispers floated through the candlelight. My mother's lip quivered, but she didn't speak. For once, she had no rehearsed line. No backhanded compliment. No lipstick-coated defense. And then I leaned in. "I bought this restaurant with the fund I saved," I whispered. "While you laughed about my looks, while you called me background, while you told me no man would ever love a woman like me." My sister finally spoke, her voice trembling. "This is a joke, right?" I smiled softly. "No, this is closure." I turned to leave. But just before I stepped away, I looked back one final time. "Don't worry," I said. "I'll cover the check. I wouldn't want you to waste money on something you don't value." Their reservation was cancelled. The meal was over. And the curtain had fallen on their self-scripted fantasy. Outside, as I stepped into the cool evening air, I felt something loosen inside me, something that had been wound tight for years. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I wasn't the girl hiding in corners while her family posed for perfection. I was the one who finally stood where they couldn't reach. The next morning, I awoke not to anger or bitterness, but a strange kind of calm, the kind that settles in your bones when you finally stop chasing people who never looked back. I brewed my own coffee in the sunlit kitchen of my modest apartment, one I paid for on my own. I didn't have grand chandeliers or velvet couches like my parents loved to brag about. But I had peace. And peace, unlike their approval, didn't come with conditions. My phone buzzed, a message from the restaurant manager. "They left early, didn't even finish their water. You were brilliant." I didn't reply. I just stared out the window and watched the city wake up. Later that week, my story started to spread. Not because I shared it, but because someone in the restaurant had recorded part of the confrontation. It went viral. People saw the tension, the shock, the cold unraveling of a family that had long worn a mask of perfection. But they also saw something else, something far more important. They saw me. A woman who was always told she wasn't enough, not pretty enough, not polite enough, not daughter enough, not family enough. And yet, there I was, standing taller than all of them. Not because I humiliated them, but because I reclaimed myself, in front of the very people who had tried to erase me. A week later, I received a call from my father. I didn't answer. Then a voicemail from my mother. "We were surprised. You should have told us. Maybe we overreacted. Maybe we should talk." There it was again. Maybe, should. So conditional. So familiar. I didn't call back. Instead, I slipped that message into the trash with the others, like old party favors from birthdays I was never invited to. I didn't need them to see me anymore. I finally saw myself. And that was the real revenge. Months passed. I used the restaurant not just as a symbol, but as a sanctuary. I hired servers who were often overlooked, single moms, refugees, older women passed over for being too plain. I trained them, paid them well, gave them ownership stakes. I made it a place where no one would be made to feel small for being real. One evening, as I helped close up after a private event, an older woman came to me with tears in her eyes. "You're the girl from that story, right? You gave me the courage to walk away from people who kept me around just to laugh at me." That's when I knew, this wasn't just my story anymore. It was for every quiet daughter, every passed-over sister, every woman who has ever been told, "You're not enough." The final twist? I never needed a family who only loved the version of me they invented. I needed a life where I could love myself exactly as I was. No edits. No conditions. No apologies. And I had built it, brick by brick, not with vengeance, but with vision. They had tried to raise a mirror to shame me. I turned it around, and let them see themselves instead. Let them toast to that.